Hello everyone. Hopefully this video finds you well and that you guys are ready for the holiday break that is coming up. And there's just a few things I wanted to touch base with our ICU program as we will be implementing it at the start of the semester. I'm very excited about this program to see the great things that it'll bring about for our students. And this video is just simply a heads up video. We'll go into a lot more detail over all the information that we go through here on our January 2nd teacher workday when we come back from break, but I didn't want us to head into that without having at least some foundation for what we'll be going through. Just again to remind everybody what the ICU is about. Basically our goal is that we can show that every student will succeed, because success is in fact the only option that we're going to be giving our students. The goal is to teach accountability. This goal again is that we want every student to complete every assignment the first time and of high quality. Also, remember, one of our goals is to teach responsibility. I use the example in our staff meeting of, if you ask your child to clean the room and they don't do it, do we just let them not do it? Well, of course not. They'll get in trouble, there'll be some sort of consequence, and then we make them clean the room. Same thing can be said that if we ask them to clean the room and they clean it, but it's not done very well, we don't just let that go. We correct the behavior, require our child to clean up the room and to clean it in the appropriate way, and until they do so, they will be in trouble. It's very similar to how the ICU will work. If a student doesn't turn in their assignment, then there will be consequences for that. Remember, our goal is to teach responsibility to our kids, not enable them. I want to take a few minutes for us to go over a couple things. We're going to go over the Fordland ICU guidelines, and then I'm going to actually take you through a real quick tutorial of the actual database. Okay, the first thing we'll look at here is the Fordland ICU guidelines. This document I went ahead and attached to the email that had the hyperlink for this video. I'm not going to go through every single part of it. I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I possibly can for a short video. You'll see some of the highlighted things that we will be talking about, but you can read through it and go through, and if you have any questions, go ahead and send those to me as well, and then we can talk about those. The first thing I want to look at is what actually goes on the ICU database, on that list. You know, what we came up with, and there, by the way, just so that you guys know, there was a committee of teachers who did the book study with me last year, and then wanted to do the additional book study this year. We kind of are the ones that have kind of worked through this. I also made a lot of phone calls to a lot of other administrators and schools who have done this, and this seems to be at least the good stepping off point for us. And I also want to say, we will be, and most definitely will need to make some changes and tweaks to the program as we go on. So again, as always, we're going to need to be flexible, but this is where we're going to try and set and start the program when we come back from Christmas break. So you'll see that any assignment is what you will put on the list, and by assignment we mean anything that you take for a grade that is not tied to participation or supplies or some sort of classroom management procedure. Things like a syllabus and those things wouldn't be on there. It's actual assignments that you say, hey, you need to know this in order to do well on a quiz or on a test. One of the other things I want to make sure that you guys are aware of is that a student can redo that assignment as many times as needed. And the reason for that is that we're trying to instill them that homework and classwork and all of these assignments are practice, so that they can make sure they understand what it is that we're asking them to do within our particular subject. Now, one of the things that we're going to start off with, and this is one of the things I see is changing pretty quickly, is this threshold for the quality of work, because that's one of the things the ICU does, is to not just get them to turn in work, but turn in quality work. We decided that we're going to go ahead and sit at that 60%. Now, I know that isn't very high, but we just want to start someplace small that's attainable and just say we just want you passing. Then we will begin to incrementally increase that till we get to a level that us as a staff we feel is in fact quality work for our students. And then the last thing I want to draw your attention to on what goes on the list is this idea of understanding about how retakes work within tests. We are going to allow retakes for tests, but we're going to cap that at a maximum of 80%. That means you can do less if you want, but a maximum of 80, so that we create an equitability that's there. We also want to still maintain the integrity of grades, of saying that, hey, you know, our top students are able to achieve higher because they're not needing to take use of the ICU as much, and their test scores are higher and things like that. But it still allows for those students who maybe needed some extra time to study and do some extra work to be able to achieve better scores in those tests, to still be able to earn those. Now, probably some of the things that the teachers and the staff are the most concerned about is, okay, so that's what goes on the list. How often do I need to put things on the list, and when do I need to? Well, when we put it on the list is the end of the following school day that it was assigned, or that the student needed to turn it in. So in this example, if the assignment was due on Monday, the third hour, then it needs to be placed on that list by 3:15 on Tuesday, so the following day. The idea is that gives us one prep hour, one morning, and one afternoon at least to be able to get those assignments in. One of the things that make the ICU work is that it needs to be kept up to date, and it needs to be as up to date as possible. And that way that data and that information is very usable for the students, the parents, and the staff. Now, when does that assignment get taken off the list? Well, it'll be taken off the following day from when the assignment is turned in. So using the exact same example, if an assignment was turned on a Monday, third hour, then it needs to be taken off the list by 3:15 on Tuesday. Again, it gives you one prep hour, one morning, and one afternoon to be able to remove that assignment. Now, one thing that I do want to make note of, if you look at that assignment and you go, hey, I think that may be of quality work, and you go ahead and remove it, then that's fine. And then when you grade it, you realize it's still failing, it's below that 60% threshold, put it right back on the list. Conversely, if a student turns in something to you and you're looking at it and you can tell very quickly it's not of that 60%, say you gave 10 math questions and they only did 2, well, even if they got those 2 right, they aren't at the 60%, then you can put them on the list because they did not do the quality threshold work that we're requesting of 60%. Now, this is also one of the things that I want to spend some time on, and we will probably talk a lot more about on the staff workday in January, and it's working lunch. If you remember when we went through it and you read the book, it said that after school, before school, and working lunch are the three times that students can work on missing assignments. We aren't going to focus to start with on before school or after school. We do tutoring and it works real well, and students still have that option, but we're not going to make it required yet. If we feel as we get in a month or two into it, we need to add that component, then we can. But we're really going to work hard and focus on this working lunch. So what working lunch is that a student will be placed on working lunch once they have more than 3 assignments. Now, I know people go, well, wait a minute, we don't want students to have any missing assignments. And there's truth to that. But after doing a lot of reading, a lot of research, talking to a lot of schools, they said if you do a 0 tolerance, then the students who struggle with missing work will never have an opportunity to get off of working lunch, and it kind of is the point of diminished returns for them. The other thing, and this was probably the most important thing that resonated with me, was if we don't do it at 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, and we just set it 3 for now, was that it doesn't give parents the opportunity to be able to step in and assist. So if I put a student on a missing assignment and then they have working lunch, and I as a parent haven't had time to be able to work with my student in order to be able to get those assignments up, or that student hadn't had time to even maybe talk to the teacher and say, hey, are you sure that this should be on there? I thought I turned it in. What do you mean it's not of quality work? And be able to work through that, then it can actually undermine what we're trying to do with the ICU list. So we're going to start it with 3, and once they have their 4th and more, then they will be on the working lunch, and they will stay on the working lunch until they get that down to 0, so that we get back to that initial point. And again, you can read some of the requirements that we'll have within that. Now, who will go on the working lunch and when? Miss Carol will run a report during 3rd hour, and then Pam will announce those students right before lunch, and then they will go to working lunch. Now, there are a couple of things I want to touch on who will be doing, as far as who staff will be doing working lunch. There's going to be 2 or 3 teachers that will be in the working lunch every single day. For example, Miss Carol is one that said that she will do that. So she will be in there to help set regulations, and we'll have at least 1 or 2 more in consistency in the program for working lunch, so the kids always know what to expect when they get in there. Now, I actually fought and argued with several administrators who have done ICU because I said I didn't want my staff to be on a rotation to go in there, and they said that's the worst thing you can do. And we'll go into more detail on this in the January meeting, but I wanted you guys to at least understand now my rationale. And here was the thought they said, that if you just had, say, Miss Carol, Miss Haynes, and Miss Hazlett were always the ones that were in there, then it becomes those 3 teachers program. It's not a Fordland Secondary School program. And so by rotating teachers in there, then students that are in there go, hey, my PE teacher, my band teacher, my math teacher, my FACS teacher, my science teacher, all of them are pushing to try and get me to do my work. It gives a little more depth. The other thing that they said is that if a teacher's not in there to participate in working lunch, then it becomes very difficult for them to know how working lunch works in order to help the students. And then also parents parents are going to be the one contacting that teacher going, well, why is it that Johnny's in working lunch when he's had 3 missing assignments with you? How is that supposed to help? Well, if you've never been in there, then it becomes difficult for you to explain that. The other thing that I discover with talking with administrators and other schools that do the working lunch is my role. And so I'll just tell you that the one thing that I was told, outside of not having teachers on a rotation, the other thing that you do that will destroy the program's ability to work is whether or not I, as the lead principal, am in there. And that I need to be committed to being in there for at least the first 2 months every single day. And so I've already talked to Mr. Fox, I've talked to Pam and said, hey, we are going to be committed to this. And so I will be in there. I think looking at my calendar, I was able to move everything, but I think 2 days, maybe 3, that I won't be here to do that. But the rest I will be there to provide support for the teachers that are there. So I can also be helping students. So we show it as everybody that's doing it. But then also if students are talking or they're using their cell phones or they're doing some of those things, we can get immediate correction for that at that time. So again, that's a real quick overview of the Fordland ICU guidelines. Again, we'll go into more detail with that as we move on through the program and as we have our staff training when we come back from break. What I want to do now, though, is just do a really quick tutorial of the Power of ICU database and what it looks like. I will be emailing this information out to you when we get back. That way you guys will have some time to work through it and to look through it. So you'll log in, and my login is going to be a little bit different than yours. I'll have more choices here than you will, but that's just because of my administrative rights. Like I have support, add student, administrative resources, document library, all of that. But I wanted to touch base on some things that you will see. This first screen, the dashboard, comes up with all the missing assignments that we have for our students. It shows how many have been completed, which we want that number to be increasing rapidly, the number of current assignments that are missing, the number of students that are missing assignments. Here's a graphic depiction of it. Here's some more that gives you, with grades, where they would fall, percentages here, completed, missing assignments, all of that. This also gives us some good information of saying when things are entered in the week, so we can kind of see, is there an ebb and flow? Does the data tell us when students are doing things, when they aren't? And then also it gives us this information here, which says which students are missing the most assignments. So these top 10, this list will be 10 long, and it allows all of us to quick hit look and say, what students do we all need to be seeking out and helping and asking, what do they owe, who do they owe, and how can I help? And then also this is the top 10 students that have completed assignments, and it helps us see, okay, look at this student, see what it is that, how we can praise them and say, hey, this student's really turned in a lot of assignments lately, and so we're very proud of them. Now, I know that this next part, when you guys see this, we're trying to be transparent and nothing's being hidden here, that it does show that teachers that have the most missing assignments, it shows who's logged on and when, and then who has submitted the most assignments. Now, I know a lot of times we look at that and we go, oh, that's Big Brother looking over us. The way I look at it is very similar to what we do here with the students. Of here's who we can celebrate, and here's the people who maybe there's some confusion or misunderstanding, or there just needs to be help or assistance. And this helps Mr. Fox and I to know who it is that we can go through and come alongside to help. Maybe there's things that we're noticing, that there's times of year, that there's just certain types of assignments. Maybe there's just certain teachers that students are doing another teacher's work, but not this other teacher's. All of that data can be used to help us be able to know how we can help our students, and that's really the point of what that is. Now I want to get into really what you guys are going to be using more often than not, and I want to start with how we add an assignment, because this is what everybody wants to know. How time consuming is this going to be? Now I will tell you to start out with, it will be more time consuming than it will as time go later on, because we'll have more students that will be having missing assignments. But once we get students trained, this won't take very long at all. But basically what you do is you put in the student's name. I've created a test student, and so you can see that it pulls up their name. You put that, just click it, then the assignment, chapter 5, section 6, questions, and then here's where you'll put more detailed. You might say, questions 1 through 10, and short answer. And then here you can, if there's a document that you want to upload that says, hey, this is what the students are doing, and so I'm just going to pick something, you just find it in your file, and then you can see right there, it went ahead and put it up in there, and then you click missing assignment. it'll process and pull it through. Now, let's say you have more than one student. Say you have 4 or 5 students that have done this and missed the assignment. You can click copy assignment. Everything is in there. Then all you have to do is just type in the student's name. So because I've asked Miss Grandel if I can use her kids, we'll go here and let's say it's Ethan, and I can click Ethan, and then I could hit submit, and it would send it off to her. And then you would do that for whoever you would need and whatever assignments that you would need. Again, it is not as user-friendly as I think the program will eventually get to, where you can just select students, but there's just some logistical problems on the ICU side whenever I talk to them about that. So this is kind of where we will start for now, and we will go from there. So what happens once I submit an assignment? Where does that go? This is the other place that we'll spend a lot of our time as teachers, and it's the database. And it's got a lot of information here that you can see. Now, these are my assignments that I've done. You can see by teacher and what's there and what the assignment is. But one of the cool features to this, and this is where I really think this gives this program weight, is this pull-down menu. Because as you can see, we have all these subgroups and grades. So let's say, for example, that test student I put as a boys basketball player. So if I'm Coach Mitchell or Coach Waterman, I can say, hey, what of my basketball boys are missing assignments, and what are they? You can see here's who's missing an assignment, and here's what assignment they're missing. So conversely, I will pick girls basketball, so you can see with like Coach McDarris or Coach Jones, see there's no students, so they know that all of their girls are in good standing within the ICU. So again, this just shows you what's there. So as you see these assignments, you can click view right here, and this is the one that we just put in. Now, if you did not assign the assignment, then you will see right here, this will not be an active pull down menu, but because I assigned it, it is. So when a student turns an assignment into me, this is where I would go, and then I would click assigned, and then would go to complete, and then update, and then it will pull it up for you, and then you can go back to the list. Now, this right here, search field right here, will be something that we will use a lot, especially if you have, say, a missing assignment and 5 kids missed it, and then they all turned it in because they were on working lunch. Rather than have to wade through all of the names potentially, you could just do it based off of assignment, and I'm just going to do, this test assignment. So I can do that. There's that test assignment, and it would list, all 5 students or however many students were on it, and then I can do the view, and then take them off of that, and then move from there. And so it's been updated. I can go back to the list and see there's none that have that, but I can go to the all assignments again, show all, and then there's those assignments. Again, this is just one of the things you'll see right here, is that if you wanted to export that would be something more for administration, office use. Miss Carol, potentially our lifeguards are at risk. They can print these off so that they can see and have it and walk around with it with them. And then they can, find students that they're wanting to work with. So this is a quick hit tutorial. Again, we'll go into much more detail on this and show you guys all of this in more detail. But the last thing I wanted to touch base on was, what is it that a parent sees? Here's an email from the test student of an assignment that I'd made earlier. You can see where it tells you what's going on, the purpose of the email, what assignment they're missing, and then if there was a document that was attached, it's right there. And then the part that I like is that if a parent has questions, or a student even has questions on, well, I don't understand how to do this, they can then email you and it will go to you. So then you have that information. You can do that correspondence back and forth. There's also a text. It basically says the same thing, but it doesn't give quite as much detail. They try and use a character limit, just like on Twitter, for example. But a parent will be notified that way as well. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope it gave you the information that you needed, and we will continue on with further conversations as the semester goes on. And I'm really excited about this program, and I think that it's going to do some really, really good things for our teachers and for our students and for our student body. And I think Fordland will be better off because of it. Thank you guys, and have a great holiday. And get started.